Hey guys, Charlie Murphy here. I'm playing a session of 1-2 No Limit 6 Max games on Ignition. Thank you for choosing my video. Games look pretty promising so far. Seen an awful lot of limping, players playing with awkward, funky stack sizes. Like what I see so far as the foundation for a promising session. Got a min raise from a short stack playing about 17, 18 blinds deep in the cutoff. I'm going to be defending all my suited cards like Jack 5 suited, and I'll check range on the flop. I will check fold against the half pot bet with no real equity there. Upper left-hand table, we had a couple of limps. I checked in my big blind and check ranged on the Jack 8-6 two-tone board. I turn 2 pair with that 4, the offsuit 4. I've got top 2, going to go ahead and start betting. Going to use a very small 30% size because we're multi-way and I want to be using small sizes on the multi-way pot. Short stack that limp called me in position so far. Do have the small blind player comes along as well. Not the best river for me is it's a flush closing card, the 5 of diamonds, as well as putting 4 to the straight out there. I think I actually want to try to get some value out of my 2 pair as opposed to trying to bluff catch. I'm going to go ahead and bet about 2/3 here and try to get called, primarily by the recreational player in position. Both players folded. Had we gotten a nice blank, I think I would have just overbet all in against this guy for 2x pot, trying to get him to calm me down. Lower left-hand table, have a new player to the table, recreational player, apparently open limping, playing about 60 blinds deep. I'm going to go ahead and isolate him from the button with ace-jack, using something like my cutoff open range, about 28% here. Lower right-hand table, got a 3x open from the button. Against a 3x open, I'm going to be a lot tighter, going to fold a lot of my raggy offsuit aces like ace-5. Lower left-hand table, the small blind calls me on the limper calls. I get a 9-7-4 rainbow board. Not going to be betting range here multi-way, not going to be checking range as I'm in position. I'm, however, going to check back ace-jack high. Be looking to bet pairs that need some protection, strong hands like my sets. Could have some gut shots, could even have some overcards with backdoor flush draws. Could have hands like 10-8 suited, 5-6 suited for open-ended straight draws. Those all make pretty reasonable flop bets. A hand like ace-jack, I think is going to play a lot better in the check-back line. Lower right-hand table, going to open king-8 from the button, using the 44% range. Lower left-hand table, small blind leads 2/3 on that 4. The board 9-4-7-4 with the backdoor flush draw. The imposition, or the limping player calls him in position. I'm going to fold my ace-jack high against that larger bet in the call with only some weak equity there with the overcards and ace-high. Flush closing river, the small blind checks, the imposition player matches the pot button, the small blind player quickly folds. Don't know if that's a bluff or he got there. It's hard to say as of quite yet. But we do like that he appears to be active. Upper right-hand table, button open limp, small blind pops him up to a small size from 2 to 6. I'm going to fold my ace-3, but I'm going to be 3-betting that reasonably aggressively. Probably treat that something like an under-the-gun open and 3-bet about 8-9%, maybe a bit wider just because we got that janky small size after a fishy player limps the button. I guess I could even have some calls there, even though I don't like calling, not closing the action and sandwich between players. I could call some pocket pairs for that price. Both players are probably weaker players, so it never hurts to be in the pot with them. So I think I might deviate and throw some calls in there for those reasons. The perceived weakness of the two opponents in the pot and the small raise size out of the blinds giving me some justification for deviating and calling when I would normally either raise or fold. Upper left-hand table, recreational player on 10 blinds, 11 blinds, open limps, a middle position. Another player on 65 blinds, limp behind. Small blind completes. I'll just check in with 8-3 offsuit and check range on the flop. Would isolate there with, pocket 8s or 9s or better. My suited Broadway cards, ace 10 plus, king jack plus type hands. We get a min bet here and then a call from the small blind. I'll just fold my 8 high. Upper right-hand table, I'll open ace-6 from the button using a 44% range. Couple of perceived recreational players in the blind. One player with some limps on his record, the other player playing short. Small blind player calls against a reg. I might give him credit for a more defined, kind of tighter but capped range of like mid-pocket pairs, maybe some suited broadways. Against a recreational player, I'm going to treat this just like a big blind. I'm going to go ahead and range bet in position here. Range bet small. Against the check raise, I'll just go ahead and quickly fold my ace-6 on the queen 8-7 two-tone board. I do have a backdoor flush draw to the 6, but that's a pretty weak reason to continue. Lower left-hand table, the recreational player on about 75 blinds open limps the button. I'll check in the big blind with deuces, check range on the flop. He quickly checks back. The board is ace-6-3 two-tone with an 8 on the turn, putting a double flush draw up there to go with the flop flush draw, front drawer, and backdoor flush draw. I'll go ahead and just stab for the minimum, and he quickly folds. Lower left-hand table, the cutoff opens 2.5x. I'm on the button with ace-king suited. Go ahead and put in a 3-bet. 3-betting very aggressively in this particular formation, about 13%. Ace-king suited, of course, a very standard, obvious 3-bet. Upper left-hand table, what's effectively the button, I will open with queen 5 suited using a 44% range. Lower left-hand table, I get a queen 10-3 rainbow board. I've got 2 overcards, a gut shot, backdoor flush draw. I'm going to go ahead and range bet this. I'm going to be barreling a lot of possible run-outs here with my equity and with my removal of the top pair. On the upper left-hand table, the big blind calls. I'm going to go ahead and put in a range bet in position. I do have bottom pair on the jack 6-5 two-tone board. Great card for me on the turn on the upper left-hand table. We get another 5, giving me a trips here, trips with a good kicker. I'm going to go ahead and continue betting. I'm going to be overbetting or checking on this texture, and the trip 5 type hands are going to be my primary value bets along with sixes full. Going to be using the overbet size, like I said. See if he wants to get suspicious and get sticky and call me down with the jack. Can also be doing that with 7, 8, various in some bigger flush draws. Especially ones with removal to either the jack or the trip fives. Or right-hand table doesn't look too promising with what the games look like all across the board. I think I'm going to shuffle that one out. Lower left-hand table will open ace-queen from the button using a 44% range. Got a bunch of limping going on up here on the upper right-hand table. I've got 8-6 offsuit. That's a little light to be completing the small blind with, but these players all seem to be weak recreational players. I'm going to go ahead and take a flop, looking to make a strong two-pair straight. Check range on the flop. Lower left-hand table, we got an ace, queen, deuce, two-tone board. I'll be range betting small in position, looking to shovel more money in on most possible turns and rivers here as I'm sitting with a very strong top two-pair hand. Turn is the queen. Let me see here. I really am blocking. I'm blocking so heavily against queen X, full houses. I've got removal to ace X. I think I can go ahead and trap with queens full of aces, aces full of queens, or quad queens. I could be overbetting my various good trip queens and twos full. I think I'll go ahead and put this one in the check back line. Give him a chance to hit some kind of draw. Jack of clubs got there, which closes the flush. Let me see here. I'm going to go ahead and use the overbet. If he has either a flush that got there, trip queens, or an ace, he's going to have a hard time folding regardless of the size. I think I'm going to get more value from those by overbetting. I'm going to go ahead and put the 3x pop bet in. Could also barrel the turn with that, but I think it's good to have some strong hands in the check back line. And I do have that board pretty heavily locked down on the turn. Or he could have also made a straight there with some kind of gut shot as well. Upper right-hand table, recreational player limps middle position. I'm going to isolate from the button with king-queen using something like my cutoff open range, about 28%. Very happy to try to make a top pair and get some value against this guy. Get an ace-queen-4 two-tone board. I will range bet small in position if he checks to me, and mostly check-back turns. He donks into me for half pot instead. With second pair top kicker, I'm not going anywhere over a single donk bet. He goes and he bets half pot again. Turn is the jack of hearts. Let's see, the triple donk lead into your line is actually fairly neutral from fish, but fish are very bluffy on the river, so I can bluff catch a ton of rivers. Plus, I've got outs to improve to trips or a straight. Even if I am worried about him having an ace at some extent here, I think I need to be calling this. Interesting card is it puts a four-setter up there, gives me sort of a two-pair, sort of a marginal two-pair without having the top two. We'll evaluate based on what he does. Lower right-hand table, get a raise from the cutoff, a 3-bet from the button. I'm going to go ahead and put in a cold 4-bet from my big blind with pocket aces. Probably be stacking off with jacks or better, an ace-king here. Given that he checks, I don't know if I can get too much value from an ace-high, a pair of ace-type hand. Actually, that's probably not out of the question. I think I should probably go ahead and try to get a little bit of thinner value bet. If he's got an ace, he just have a hard time folding it. Well, he had king 10, so he actually did it with a gut shot that got there on the turn and then slowed down on the river and doesn't even raise the river, which is awkward, but whatever. My cold 4-bet gets jammed down on the button. I'll go ahead and call off with the aces. I'm against ace king, kind of a cooler for him. Flop gave me a bit of a sweat there with that gut shot to Broadway for him, but aces hold up. I'm on a half stack right now on the upper right-hand table from the recreational player doing me dirty with this king 10 there a few hands ago, but I'm going to go ahead and isolate him up from the cutoff with king 9 suited, same guy limping, using something like my middle position open range, about 21%. Lower right-hand table, I open blind on blind with 7-5 suited, and I'm checking range to the big blind. I get a 9-9-7 rainbow board. He stabs for half pot. I'm going to go ahead and check call with my pair of 7s. Continue checking on the turn. Turn is a king of spades, putting the backdoor flush draw up there. He continues barreling. I'm going to go ahead and range bet small on the upper right-hand table in position. It's a Jack 10-10 rainbow board. Pretty good turn for me. Queen giving me a straight over there. I faced a second barrel. I think I'm just going to go ahead and fold my 7. I can have some 9x, various draws, or some king x I backed into. I think it's okay to fold even if slightly nitty. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and bet about 2/3 and plan on jamming the river with my straight. Lower right-hand table, get a posting player in the cutoff who checks. I'm going to go ahead and isolate from the button with Jack 9 suited. I'm going to isolate similar, with a cutoff open range, about 28%, similar as if he actually just limped. The recreational player goes and check raises me. I mean, he could have, Jesus Christ, I guess with these guys, ace-king is even possible. He could have some boats as well, but I've got a straight. He could be overplaying some kind of hand or doing God knows what. I'm only on a half stack. I got a straight. I'm just going to go ahead and get this all in and not think twice about it. Even though the fish check raises on the turn are usually pretty strong. He had trips, but he played himself, and I got my half stack back from him. Lower left-hand table, I'll open ace-king for middle position using a 21% range. Get 3-bet in position by a player who's been on the very tight passive side so far. Only played 3 hands out of 26. Only raised once so far out of 26 opportunities. He's probably a little on the nitty side, having done that over a few full lower bets, but I don't know that he's nitty enough that it's going to justify me not 4-betting and stacking off with ace-king for 100 blinds. So I'm going to go ahead and 4-bet. I'm still going to 4-bet my queens plus ace-king to stack off and ace-queen offsuit as a bluff. Get a min raise from a recreational player under the gun on the upper left-hand table. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet him from middle position with king 10 suited. 3-betting 9 to 10% here. I want to isolate against this weak player. The min raise doesn't necessarily scream strength. He's been 82-18 with 80% limp so far. My ace-king actually gets called and get a very lousy range, or lousy board rather, for my 4-bet range. I don't have any 10s, 9s, or 7s, or any kind of straights. I think I actually want to check range here, especially given I think this guy's on the nittier side. Let's see, upper left-hand table, the recreational player calls the 3-bet. I get a Jack 9-8 rainbow board. I'll go ahead and range bet him small in position. I've got an open-ended straight draw and an overcard. Lower right-hand table, I'm going to open ace-jack suited under the gun using an 18% range. I'm going to check fold my ace-king, no backdoor draws in the lower left-hand table. Against the rec, he check calls the flop. I'm going to go ahead and keep betting. Probably planning to barrel off here, as a matter of fact. Go ahead and use about a 2/3 size. Lower left-hand table, I'll open 5s under the gun using an 18% range. Lower right-hand table, I'm going to range bet small in position against the big blind. I take it down on the upper left-hand table with the second barrel. Planning to mostly dust off on the river there. Maybe if 10 I could check back because it's got a smidge of showdown value. And then the king I would dust off for value. A straight I would, straight, I would put the rest in for value, of course. And if I get a total brick where I've got king high, I think I've got no choice but to keep blasting. Probably planning to use a jam size. Upper left-hand table, opening king 10 suited under the gun, using an 18% range. Small blind comes along, as does the recreational player in the big blind. In position, so I won't be range. I won't be range checking with the multi-way pop, but since it's multi-way, I also won't be range betting. We get a Jack 3-3 two-tone board. I think I can just go ahead and check this back. I've got decent removal to the Jack and some backdoor draws, so there's some argument for betting this. I don't think it's going to make a big difference one way or the other. I'm going to opt to check it back. Play a little more value-heavy multi-way, especially with the recreational player in the pot. But now that they checked twice and I've got a gut shot here on that ace-3, I'm going to go ahead and stab at it and plan to follow through on the river. And I take it down with my small turn stab. Using that small size multi-way, the small size puts a lot of pressure on their continue ranges. Multi-way, it seems to do a lot better. If you use a larger size, they can just correctly fold almost everything except monster-type hands. The small size force them to get in there and play some of the more marginal hands, and they often don't find all their continues correctly. For left-hand table, get a min-raise from a recreational player on the cutoff. I'll be defending my big blind. The small blind came along as well, too. Even happier that he's in there with fours, looking for that third four, trying to win a big pot. I'll be checking range here on the flop. Assuming it checks to me, I'll fold if this guy leads for any meaningful size on the Jack 9-3 rainbow board when I've got pocket fours. He checks, I check. Upper right-hand table, going to open queen 10 suited blind on blind using the 45% range. Upper left-hand table, going to fold fours to the half pot bet from the in-position player. Even before the small blind call, that was going to be out of the way. Upper right-hand table, the big blind, a recreational player calls. I'm going to check range to him. The board is king 4-3 two-tone. I do have a backdoor flush draw. Against the pot size bet, slightly over pot size bet, in fact, 12.55 into 11.40. I'm just going to go ahead and fold my queen high backdoor flush draw. Against a smaller bet, that's the kind of hand I'd be looking to continue, probably for a check call, but maybe for a check raise if the sizing he used was small enough, where I think I'm going to get it through a bit more often. But against the overbet, there's just, especially against a loose passive recreational player, there's just no reason to start tangling with him too lightly. It's just entirely unnecessary because those guys aren't aggressive enough to really justify it. Dream table on the upper right-hand side, it might be all recreational players. I guess the 5 seed hasn't played too shitty as far as his stats go. He's played 25-25, no pre-flop cold calls, no limps. But he is playing on a less than 100 blind stack, which usually is a giveaway that these guys aren't serious regulars. Everybody else, though, seems to be a confirmed recreational player based on significant limping, or the 6 seed who's, he's new, but he's playing short as well. Lower right-hand table, I'm in middle position with king 5 suited. That's usually just outside my open range here. However, we have a recreational player in the big blinds, and nobody's been 3-betting. I'll expand my range ever so slightly from the standard default plan I'm using here to include that hand, primarily because there's a rec in the big blind. Upper right-hand table, recreational player limps under the gun. I'll isolate from the cutoff with something like my middle position open range, about 21%. I'm using ace-jack suited in this particular hand. The king 5 open got through. I took down the blinds pre-flop. I normally am opening king 6 suited or better and folding king 5 or worse, so that hand is really right on the cusp. Great flop for me against that recreational player on the upper right-hand table. Get a Jack 9 rainbow board. I'm sitting on trips top kicker. We already saw that this guy can find a way to limp call with all kinds of garbage and get himself overly involved with the weak trips hand, not realizing his kicker doesn't play as well as he thinks it might. I'll go ahead and range bet him small in position after he checks, and unfortunately for me, he quickly folds this time. For right-hand table, opening eights from middle position using the 21% range. called by a recreational player in position and by a small blind player that I also suspect to be a rec playing on a shorter stack, playing about 35 blinds deep. Be checking range on the flop sandwich between players not in position. The recreational player in the big blind comes along as well. Board not necessarily all that great for me. King 7-4 two-tone. I mean, I guess I do have second pair. I beat second pair and third pair. I guess I'm more not thrilled about that board, and that if I hit the 8, 5, 6 is actually the hand that makes the nuts on that card, as opposed to 8s being a lock with the trip 8s. So a little bit scandalous. Now he goes and he leads into me 6 into 19. You know, if this were heads up, I'd be floating that in position all day long. With 2 other players still left to act behind me, one of whom has position throughout the hand, I think I can go ahead and fold, even against that small size. The other players have some defense responsibility as well. Upper left-hand table, opening 6s from middle position, using a 21% range. Lower right-hand table, the middle position player opens 2.5x. I'm in the small blind with king-queen. That's a little bit looser than my typical re-raise in that spot. I would re-raise ace-king, ace-queen offsuit, or my suited broadways, but I'll fold king-queen offsuit in that particular formation. Upper left-hand table called in position and by the big blind. I'm going to check range sandwich between the 2 players. I've got 6s on the ace-jack-jack two-tone board. Everyone quickly checks through. Turn is the queen of clubs flush closing card. I get let into for half pot by the big blind player. I've got 6s, no club. I'll just go ahead and fold that. Lower right-hand table, recreational player limps the cutoff. I'll pop him up from the button with queen 9 suited using something like my cutoff open range, about 28%. Everyone else folds but the limping player who limp calls. I'm going to go ahead and range bet him small in position. The board is Jack 7-3 two-tone. I do have a backdoor flush draw. None of that matters, though, as he quickly folds against my small flop bet. Looks like he's playing fit or fold and quickly folding if he doesn't fit, which means my small continuation bets are going to be printing money against that guy. And if nobody else is 3-betting me when I isolate him, that's a good sign, too, because they're not going to stop me from isolating him unless they 3-bet. And he's not going to stop me from doing anything about it if he's just limp calling and then check folding the flop a ton of the time against a very small bet. So I like what I see going on here so far, that's for sure. Upper left-hand table, the short stack player on the cutoff are playing about 30 blinds deep, min raises. The recreational player playing 72-12 with a ton of limp, 73% limp. He calls, small blind folds. I'm going to call closing the action in the button with ace-4 suited. Can be a squeeze in many situations, but against the short stack, I don't want to get myself pot stuck with a hand like ace-4. I'm content to take the flop with ace-4 suited, so I will just do that, check range on the flop. Get a king 10-6 two-tone board of which I have the nut flush draw, so I like what I see so far. The raising player goes ahead and bets half pot 6 into 12. The in-position player, who I'm really wanting to go after because we're deep and I've got a nut draw, he folds, unfortunately. Let me see here. I guess check raising's not terrible to go with this. I've got the flush draw on the overcard, so I really have a decent bit of equity. I think it's going to play a little bit better here as a check call, though. If I can hit my hand, I can get the money in way ahead. I can maybe float out of position and take the pot away if we brick out. Or I can see if he defines the strength of his hand by barreling the turn as well. He does barrel the turn. He only bets half pot. I'm getting 3-1, assuming that my clubs and ace are all live. I'm getting immediate odds to go ahead and continue here. So I'm going to go ahead and just play for a call and try to improve on the river. River is the jack, doesn't do a whole lot for me. I'm just going to go ahead and check fold. I guess you could also check raise the turn all in. I'm just not sure that a player that's playing on a short stack is going to fold too many hands there. He shows down second pair, queen 10 of hearts. Maybe he folds that, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Probably not if he's playing it that way. I think what I want to do against that guy, however, is be playing top pair in the same way, but check raising the turn. If I get a situation like that again, a hand like king-queen offsuit is going to be a great turn check raise if he blasts again. For right-hand table, the recreational player limps. I complete the small blind with 6-3 suited. The big blind checks in, and I'm checking range on the flop. I've got a gut shot and second pair on the 7-6-4 two-tone board. Now I've got trips. I'm going to go ahead and start stabbing at that pot small multi-way, planning to value bet the rec on the river as well if he comes along, run pretty much any river. He goes ahead and raises me pretty big. He pops me up to 10. I'm not folding trips with the gut shot here, of course, but I do feel like there's a good chance I'm actually behind right now because these guys just aren't that aggressive. He could be doing this with any kind of trips, and my kicker is one of the shittiest ones possible. I will, however, call, check to him on the river. Upper left-hand table, going to open the middle position with 10-9 suited using a 21% range. For right-hand table, we got a blank, a king, offsuit king. Going to evaluate based on what he does. If he bets real big, I can maybe fold. If he's overbetting, he checks back. Small bet I was never folding to. Anything less than pot, I was going to beat him into the pot and make him show me better. Upper left-hand table, I got called by a rec in position and by the big blind. I'm going to check range sandwich between two players. I do have top pair on the 9-8 deuce two-tone board. Lower right-hand table, the small blind tries to limp on my big blind. I'm going to pop him up with something like my button open range, including speculative hands like 8-6 suited. Upper left-hand table, it checked through. The turn is a jack of clubs. It's a flush closer. Also gives me an open and a straight draw. I'm going to go ahead and jab at it small with the hand that I've got. My open ender with my second pair. In position, player calls. I'm not sure there's a ton of value in continuing to bet second pair against this guy on a flush possible board. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and try to show it down for free. These guys also don't bluff you nearly often enough in those lines to really put you in too bad a spot. Lower right-hand table, when I get check raised here against, I've got no real equity, just go ahead and fold. He bets forward the 24. If he wants a little bit of value like that with this jack, congratulations, I'm not folding that. He does have a jack, which I'm not terribly surprised that that's the kind of hand he's betting. But for that price, I'm never, ever folding any smidge of showdown value, especially against a recreational player. Lower left-hand table, going to min-raise from middle position. I'm going to go ahead and defend my big blind with Queen Jack and check range on the flop. A pretty decent flop for my hand. King Jack 6 monotone. I do have the second pair and the Queen of Spades for the second nut flush draw. I've got showdown value, and I've got sort of a non-nut draw with the flush on that monotone board. I'm very happy to play that hand in the check call line. Turn gives me a bit more equity with the 10, gives me an open ender to go with my flush draw and my second pair. Great river, the ace of spades. It gives me the nut flush at this point. I want to bet it. I don't block any of the other flushes that can call down, so I think I want to use my overbet size. I'm just going to go ahead and mash the 3x pot button here. If I had flopped a flush where I blocked some of his other flush call downs, I think I might use a smaller size either for value. For value, of course, if I'm betting with the flush. I'm going to mix my bluffs between the smaller size and the overbet size. For right-hand table, the recreational player, suspected rec playing in a short stack. He's limped or half stack. He limps his blind. I'll check in with 6-4. He checks to me on the King-Queen 8 two-tone board. I'm going to go ahead and stab for half pot, see if I can't take that away from him here. Upper right-hand table, going to open ace-9, blind on blind, using the 45% range. Upper left-hand table, get a 2.5x open from the button. I'm in the small blind with pocket eights. Going to go ahead and put in a 3-bet. 3-betting very aggressively here in this loose formation, about 15%, including most but not all of my pocket pairs. Pocket eight's a very clear 3-bet. Upper right-hand table, I'll open ace-8 from the button using the 44% range. Get cold called by a recreational player in the big blind who then folds out. We get a 10-10-5 rainbow board. I'm going to go ahead and range bet him small heads up. Upper left-hand table I get donked into for almost pot on the 7-3 deuce two-tone board, and I've got 2 overcards, but no flush draw or backdoor flush draw. Against that large size, I think I'll just go ahead and fold. My small continuation bet gets through on the upper left-hand table. It's a pretty clean board for eights, about as good a board as I could hope for without actually having hit a set. Lower right-hand table at a 2.5x open from middle position. I'm in the small blind with queen-9 suited. It's probably a little too loose to be 3-betting. A 3-bet there, about 9%. Suited broadways, but maybe not queen-9. Upper right-hand table, opening jack-10 suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. Recreational player calls me in position. As does well, this guy seemed like a wreck, but my only read on this guy and the small blind player being a wreck was the stack size, but he's not that short. He's only short about 10 to 15 blinds, and he hasn't been playing like a recreational player otherwise. So I'm going to take the tag off of him. Lower left-hand table, opening king-8 on the button. Upper right-hand table, sandwiched between 2 players, so I'm range checking. I do have a decent top pair on the 10-9-4 rainbow board. Everyone checks through. I get led into 75% by the small blind player. I'm, of course, going to be calling at least once with my top pair. Let's see, the in-position player folds out. The recreation, or I don't know if he's a recreational player, but the small blind player checks. Turn is a 9. I don't really have a great kicker for what a player who's probably not all that fishy would have 10xy's. His 9x or trips, he could be getting cute on that board because all the draws miss, giving me a chance to stab with my draws and, and doing something like checking 4's full or a hand like 10-9 kind of shit. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and check this back here against the small blind. He had ace-jack high. Little bit questionable to call pre-flop and lead the turn. I guess he's just thinking that nobody had anything when they checked through on the flop. Should have used a smaller size. He uses a smaller size. I think that's okay. His pre-flop play, I think, is a little questionable, though. I think he should, 3-bet's a lot better than calling. Folding's probably better than calling, too. I think I would like either 3-bet or fold there with the ace-jack offsuit more so than the call. In fact, if he's got a hand like ace-jack there, he can squeeze me off a ton of my open range because I'm going to be in between players and not at position post-flop. I have to worry about being back jammed on by the fishy player in position, who won't do it a ton but could do it some, but also robs me of a ton of my equity by his ability to call in position. So I'm going to be folding a ton there. Actually, I think I like squeeze from this guy's perspective with ace-jack because that's a great hand to play heads up against the fish in a 3-bet pot, and he's going to get me out of the way a ton of the time. The more I think about it and talk about it, the more I really don't like his call and think either folding or 3-betting is much better. Lower left-hand table, I open ace-4 suited from middle position using 21% range. I get 3-bet in position by the button. 3-bet a normal size from 5 to 16. Let me see here. How do I approach this spot? I think I want to be 4-betting queens plus ace-king, maybe even pocket jacks. If I'm 4-betting jacks to stack off with, I have a few more pre-flop 4-bet bluffs, like maybe mix in ace-5 suited. I think ace-4 suited is going to be a fold either way, though. Lower right-hand table looks to be a bit played out. I don't see any obvious wrecks there any longer, and several players who are almost certainly not true recreationals. I think I'll shuffle that one out and look for greener pastures. Funky sizing from that under the gun player on the lower right-hand table. That's a little questionable. He used the full pot button, 3.5x open. Lower left-hand table open in Jack 5 suited, blind on blind, using the 45% range. Lower right-hand table going to open 8-7 suited from the button using the 44% range. I'm sorry, upper right-hand table, not the lower right-hand table. Big blind comes along, get a king, queen, 8, two-tone board. I do also have the backdoor flush draw. After he checks, going to go ahead and range bet small in position. Turn is an offsuit deuce, about the blank of all blank cards in the deck. Here I can have all the sets. I can have king, queen. I can have king, 8. I can have queen, 8 suited. I can have king, deuce suited as well. You know, he's going to be discounted to some extent by not 3-betting pre-flop or check raising the flop. I definitely want to be using the overbet or check sizing here, given I can have all these nut-type hands. I can mix in various straight draws like Jack 10 or various diamond flush draws, typically the larger ones. Hands with some showdown value. I want to go ahead and check back like third pair, 8-7. Not the blankest of all possible cards at 10 as it coordinates with his possible straight draws, you know, that I was still ahead of. I still think I just want to show this down in case he's got some kind of busted ace high, flush draw type thing. I can have much weaker hands to turn into bluffs. I do have a smidge of showdown value here, so I think I'm just going to take it. And I'm against ace 4, so I'm happy to take that pot. He probably should have turned that hand into a bluff on that particular card. I'm glad he didn't, though, because the texture would have made my bluff catching awful dicey, as we had 3 Broadway cards out there, and, you know, a lot of his very logical draws now at least have a pair. Yeah, he definitely should have turned that hand into a bluff. Upper left-hand table, I got 9-5 suited on the button, bit outside of standard open range, but I've got a couple of essentially confirmed recreational players in that pot. I'm going to go ahead and open, just play a few more hands with the Rex. Lower left-hand tab, we had a 2.5x open from the button, and then the small blind, a confirmed recreational player, comes along for a call. I will, I think actually I'm going to go ahead and try to squeeze here with King Jack. That's a bit wider than I usually squeeze. I'm looking to move the button out and try to play heads up with King Jack against the Rec in position. Upper left-hand table, I'll go ahead and range bet heads up here against the small blind fish that came along. Upper left-hand table, going to go ahead and defend my big blind for a call with Queen 8 suited against the button open and the recreational player who calls in the small blind. My plan works so far in that the button folds out and the Rec came along, so I'm heads up in position. Don't get the great board for my hand, 7-7-6 two-tone. I've got no piece of it, no back door. Upper right-hand table, it checked through, and I've got a flush draw on the turn, so I'm going to go ahead and stab at it. Lower left-hand table, I'm going to go ahead and range bet small. Upper left-hand table, and that flush closing card with no flush draw blocker, I'm just going to go ahead and check back. River on the upper right-hand table is the flush closer, 9 of diamonds. He goes and leads into me for pot. I've got the third nut flush. I think I want to go ahead and just raise him all in for a little over pot here for value. Upper left-hand table, going to go ahead and stab with my 9 high as a bluff. I get check raised in the lower left-hand table, just going to go ahead and fold out. And I overflushed him, Jack high flush versus Queen high flush, so he beat me into the pot, but my hand is good. My bluff didn't get through on the upper left-hand table, but hey, that's life. Upper left-hand table, I'm opening ace-king from the cutoff using the 28% range. Going to go ahead and re-raise from the small blind against the limp and the min-raise from that fish over there on the lower left-hand table. Upper right-hand table, we got a 2.5x open from the cutoff. I'm in the small blind with ace-3 suited, bit outside my standard 3-bet range. I'll go ahead and fold that one. Now, I got squeezed here by a player that's been very aggressive. I'm just going to go ahead and 4-bet and get this in. 4-bet queens plus ace-king, maybe jacks as well. Yeah, jacks as well, I think, here in this spot. Maybe ace-queen is a bluff. Going to go ahead and continuation bet here against the recreational player in the 7-7-6 rainbow board. Lower left-hand table. I do have overcards and a backdoor flush draw on this one. My 4-bet gets called. I'm going to go ahead and range bet him small in position on the upper left-hand table. I got min raise with here that ace-9 of diamonds. I'm going to go ahead and defend that. Upper left-hand table, we get the queen. I've got the gut shot and 2 overcards. About 60% of pot left. I'm just going to go ahead and shovel this in. I can have aces, kings, queens, jacks, and ace-queen. This is my weakest hand, but it's got plenty of equity. He beats me into the pot with a set of jacks. Good for him, I guess. Lower left-hand table, I turn an open-ender on the 8. That's a pretty good card for me. He goes and he stabs for half pot. I think this guy can be doing all kinds of wacky stuff on the flop, the hands that just can't stand up to the raise. I've got an open-ender and an overcard. I'm going to go ahead and check raise him all in here. It's going to be a little less than a pot size raise after you account for the call. We're going to go ahead and do that for sure. I think that's the move, given I think his flop raising range is a little bit too wide, and I've got a lot of equity here in case I actually run into something he won't fold. He didn't snap me, so that's good. Hey, that one got through. He tanked and he folded. I do like that I'm in position with an active loose player with the big stack. Upper right-hand table, button open limps. I'll complete the small blind with ace-9. Check range on the flop. Flop checks through. Turn is a 6 of clubs. Jack 8-5 two-tone. Flush closing 6 on the turn. I do have a gut shot. I'm going to go ahead and stab for the minimum. Plan to follow through on the river for the most part. In position player calls. River is a 4, puts 4 the straight out there. I've got ace high with my busted gut shot. I'm going to go ahead and bluff. No need to overbet bluff the recreational players in position. They don't really respond to bet sizing appropriately, so they call a bit more than they should as you size up. So I'm really not bluffing fish when they're in position for the overbet. I'll bluff them with the small size, just to plink away at them, try to make them full. But the overbets are going to be very value heavy when the fish are in position. Same recreational player limps middle position, or the cutoff rather. I'm going to isolate from the button with queen 10 using something like my cutoff open range, about 28%. Limp calls. I get a king, queen, 6 two-tone board. If you check, so I'll range bet small in position. Mostly checking back the turn unless I hit a queen. I guess a 10 is going to be a bit trickier as it's second and third pair with straight possibles or maybe even flush possibles out there. The other cards are all very straightforward how I want to approach them though. Check back second pair. Overbet if I make trips. Right-hand table, Rick limps the button. I'll check my big blind with 8-6 and check range on the flop. I do have a gut shot there. He mashes the pot button. I'm not that worried about hitting my gut shot and being up against Jack 8 for the nut straight against the second nut straight. I think I can go ahead and check call this one time looking for that 7. Turn is an offsuit ace. I'll be check folding here against pretty much any bet. He mashes pot and I mash the fold button. Upper right-hand table, I got ace-9 in middle position. I normally don't open that loose, but I do have a recreational player in the big blinds, and they have not been aggressive in position on me, so I'm going to expand my range and try to play some more hands against the rec. In position player that's kind of short calls, as does the rec. I'll check range sandwiched between two players. I've got ace-9 with the ace of spades on the 10-6-3 two-tone board. I do have the backdoor flush draw with that ace of spades. However, against the 2/3 bet, 10 into 15, I'm just going to go ahead and check fold. Upper left-hand table, lost one of the recs, unfortunately. Although this guy's clearly a rec here, a new player, as he's open limping from middle position. Open limping, period. He limps, small blind completes. I'm in the big blind with pocket king. Is going to go ahead and pop that up to a large size, 150% of pot. Doing that with a tight, strong range, about 12%. Pocket eights are better, suited broadways, ace 10, king jack type stuff. You suited nine, suited connector type hands. Upper right-hand table, 3x open, blind on blind. I'm going to go ahead and defend for a call with ace 8 suited. The limping player limp calls. I get an 8-3 deuce rainbow board. Going to go ahead and range bet him small. The upper right-hand table, he checks to me on the king 7-3 rainbow, so I'm just going to go ahead and stab for half pot. It'd be reasonably hard to find the continues on that board with the board being dry, disconnected. He goes ahead and check raises me. Go ahead and fold against the check raise. I'm not completely convinced that it's legitimate, but we'll keep an eye and see if that guy is doing much check raising in that spot. A lot of players don't necessarily have that in their repertoire, at least not significantly enough. Lower left-hand table, we're three-handed now. I'm going to open ace-jack from the button using a 44% range. Big blind calls, get an ace-king-8 rainbow, or monotone board, rather. I'm sorry, I don't have the diamond in my hand, which would be nice, but I do have top pair with a good kicker. Going to go ahead and range bet it small. The blank turns, the non-diamond turns, I'm going to go ahead and continue barreling, probably for a half pot size there, to put the kind of single diamond hands in more of a bind. Because I've got a lot of hands that want to deny equity. I don't want to be overbetting all my stuff like marginal top pairs that just lets him fold everything except lock type hands against me. Upper left-hand table, going to open 5-3 suited on the button. Using about a 44% range, so this hand's kind of on the cusp, though I definitely want to play it with a fish out there in the blinds. Open 3x blind on blind, lower right-hand table. He's going to fold my queen 4. Big blind checks to me. I get a 5-3 deuce board. I've got top two. I'm just going to go ahead and range bet him small and plan to start shoveling more money in on good turns and rivers. You know, I don't want to see an ace, a 4, a 6, or a heart, so there's a lot of bad cards too. For right-hand table, got a 3x open, blind on blind. I'll defend for a call with 10-7 suited. That's very standard. Get a queen 8-7 rainbow board. I'm going to go ahead and stab for half pot here against the check. Do a backdoor flush draw, go with my third pair. Be mostly checking back turns unless I improve. Even checking back if I improve with the diamond. Now that is an interesting card. Lower left-hand table, open queen 10 suited under the gun. It's an interesting card in that now I've got some pretty good removal. I think I probably want to actually be bluffing with this. The 7 doesn't really have showdown value at this point, and I want to have some 10x and some 9x in my bluffing range, and I do have good removal to the nuts as well as the set of 7. So I'm going to go ahead and keep blasting and plan to blast the river as a bluff or for value if I hit my 9 or hit trip 7s. Lower left-hand table, I get a 10-3-3 two-tone board. Two recreational players in the blind both call. The spazzy guy leads into me for 6 into 14. I'm just going to go ahead and continue for a call. Check raise big multi-way by the small blind player. I think that means I need to get the hell out of the way there. I think that's going to be a 3x type hand an awful lot of the time. Multi-way, big size from a loose passive. Raise and a re-raise up a right-hand table, so I'll fold my ace-4. The player that led, then he calls the big check raise. I'm going to go ahead and get out of the way, but keep an eye on what these two silly players are doing. That's half pot on that flush closing card. And they both got trip 3s, king 3. Lousy turn card, but didn't scare either of them away even remotely. He raised all in deep, and the other guy snapped. Upper right-hand table, going to open Jack 9 suited, or I'm sorry, going to isolate Jack 9 suited against the middle position limper. I'm isolating with something like my cutoff open range, about 28%. And that big flop check raise saved me from shoveling more money in against the big blind player's trips. I get a ace-9 deuce rainbow board. He checks to me. I'll go ahead and range bet him small, mostly checking back turns. He snap folds. For right-hand table, going to open ace-jack suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. Small blind pops me up on the upper right-hand table. I'm going to go ahead and defend reasonably wide here against the cutoff for small blind formation. He does use a nice 4.5x type size. These are the same size I would use, honestly, 5 to 22. I could defend with my suited broadways, most pocket pairs, some suited connectors. Probably call ace-king, probably only really 4-betting kings, aces, ace-king suited as a default to stack off, but this is going to be a very standard call here. We get a 2.5x open, then a click, min-click back from this fishy player. I'd love to be in there with fours, but not with raises and re-raises and action not being closed. I think I'll just make the more responsible decision and fold. Upper left-hand table, get a couple of limpers. I'm going to go ahead and isolate out of the small blind with ace-10. I get a continuation bet on the king-queen-3 two-tone board. I've got a gut shot, backdoor flush draw, overcard, ace-high. I'm going to float that bet. Gin turn card for me, the 10 of spades, giving me the nuts straight and the flush draw to go with it. Upper left-hand table, both limpers call, so out of position to two players. I'll just be checking range here. Let's see. I think I want to go ahead and stab for half pot. And the upper right-hand table with the nuts. Upper left-hand table, both players check through. Turn is the queen. I'm going to go ahead and start stabbing at this with my ace-10, see if I can't take that pot away. Using the small size multi-way. In-position player calls as both in-position players call. Don't know that there's a ton of merit in bluffing against two fish in position here. I think I'll just go ahead and surrender this one, which happens pretty rarely, but against two in-position fish players, I think it's the time for it. It's the half pot bet. I'll just check fold my ace high. Lower left-hand table, going to open Jack-10 suited from middle position using a 21% range. The Spazzy Rec before me decided to sit this hand out, unfortunately. It's a good hand to be involved with them with. I do have another rec in the big blind, though, who may give me another chance at my come up on this particular hand. Lower right-hand table, will open ace-king from middle position, use a 21% range. The rec calls out of the big blind. I'm going to range bet him small here after he checks. I do have top pair on the 10-9-6 two-tone board. My ace-king hand gets called in position. We get a deuce-deuce-3 two-tone board. I'm going to go ahead and check range to the in-position player, just checking range in this formation when the in-position player calls pretty much all the time. Now he goes ahead and he bets 10 into 12. You know, his range should really be pocket pair heavy. However, I think I am going to go ahead and check call at least once with ace-king high. Continue checking. If he puts more pressure on me, I can lay this hand down. He goes and bets 75%. I think the move is just going to be to fold ace-king high here. I've got all kinds of pocket pairs. I mean, I've got every overpair. I've got eights full. I've got quad deuces. I've got threes full. I think I can fold ace-king, especially against a range that I assume is going to be largely hands that have me beat. King of hearts also blocks a lot of his potential flush draws if he's calling with suited Broadway type cards and barreling flush draws as well. So I think everything just points towards being a fold there. For right-hand table, an open king-jack from middle position using a 21% range. Get a min raise from middle position on the lower left-hand table. Going to go ahead and defend with most of my offsuit aces from the big blind, including ace-5, and check range on the flop. Upper right-hand table, a recreational player has got about 40 blinds left. He calls. I'm going to range bet him small on this king 4-4 board. Let's see here. I get a half pot bet with the ace 10 9 board and lower left hand table. A check call with my marginal top pair. Continue checking. Good turn for me. The rec check calls, then leads into me for pot on the ace turn. Whew. Interesting. I actually think I'd rather continue. I think I can fold here with these for that size against the donk bet. Going to defend the 3x open blind on blind lower right hand table with the king 7. Going to continue checking my weak trip aces. I get a 3x open from the button on the upper left hand table. I can defend that for a call with 9-6 suited and check range on the flop. Great flop for me, queen 6-6. He goes ahead and checks back the flop. I'm going to go ahead and probe the turn small. I do have a nice strong hand with good trips. He quickly calls. River is a blankety blank, the 2 of spades. I'm going to continue betting for value. I'm going to overbet for value here. Put his queen X, jack X, pocket pairs, ace high into a tough spot. Don't get called. Pick up the pot instead. His range feels nice and capped there on that flop check back and then turn call against a small bet. I think he's going to have a ton of hands that just don't do all that well against the overbet. It's like an overbet for value and overbet bluff the regs. Wouldn't be overbet bluffing fish there in that spot, though, as they just find a way to show up at the river with hands they won't fold. Between their tendency is to slow play with being passive too much on earlier streets, and their tendency is to not really adjust to larger bet sizes and call more than they should against those. You know, they still fold too much, but I'd rather just funnel my bluffs into a smaller size against the fish. The regs, you can go when they're in position. Out of position, you can still bluff fish for any size you want. You can bluff the regs for any size you want, standard sizes or overbet sizes as well. Upper right-hand tab, when open blind on blind with 9-6 suited, I'd usually open about 45%. This guy has been playing extremely tight. He's only played one hand in 23 so far, so I think I'd be expanding my range, but 9-6 suited is a standard open anyway. He calls me that time, so I'm going to check range on the flop. He checks back. We get a Jack 5-4 rainbow board. Turn is an offsuit 10, completing the rainbow. I don't have too much going for this hand, but I am going to stab at it with the 9 high, try to take it away. And follow through on the river as a bluff as well. I don't have great removal to overbet bluff. If I had a queen, I'd put this in the overbet bluff line. I'm going to use a smaller size here instead. Still much better than checking when I've got 9 high. King can scare a lot of his turn calling range off. And he's got queen jack. I don't know if I can make that fold even for an overbet. You never know, but that one's a little bit more questionable to get the fold out. His flop check back isn't too bad. Induces some more bluffs. Had he stabbed the flop, I would have just check folded with my garbage hand, so he probably got max value by playing the way he did. Not to say that it was necessarily good, but it certainly worked out that particular time. Would have rather overbet bluffed on something like a 7 or a 3 where my 6 blocks a lot of possible straights. Lower right-hand table, recreational player limps under the gun. I'll complete my small blind with queen 9. Check range on the flop, assuming I don't get popped up by the big blind, which I do, to a very large size. I'll go ahead and quickly fold my queen 9 instead. For left-hand table, I'm going to open ace-10 under the gun using an 18% range. Get 3-bet in position. I'll quickly fold. That table's not looking so juicy, so I'm going to shuffle it out and look for a new one. Upper right-hand table, get a 2.5x open. A player playing slightly short, but otherwise playing very much like a reg. I will defend from my big blind with 3 deuce suited and check range on the flop. Very nice flop for me, having flopped the flush, king, queen, 7 monotone, all spades, of which I have 2 more in my hand. He goes ahead and puts in a very small bet, probably range betting. I will go ahead and check call with my small flush and get to the turn. Lower right-hand table, opening king 4 suited from the cutoff using the 28% range. He goes and barrels 75% on the blank 9 offsuit 9. I guess it does complete jack 10 for a straight. I'm going to go ahead and continue check calling. Check the river. River is the ace. I'm either going to be check calling or check raising, depending on what we see from him here. He goes ahead and he bets 30. Now, let's see here. I suppose I can probably get called down by weaker if I jam and it's slightly more than pot. I'm not that worried about him having a bigger flush. I think I want to go ahead and put in the check raise here and just check jam. Lower right-hand table, 2.5x open under the gun. I'll 3-bet from middle position with king, queen, 3-betting 8 to 9% here. Yeah, I got called down by my check raise. Well, my approach worked out pretty well there. I'll take a look and see what he had and see. He obviously had something pretty decent to call me down there, I'd expect. Let's just see how much of that was me earning it and how much of it was the deck smacking me in the face. Upper right-hand table, a recreational player limps the cutoff. I'll complete my small blind with ace-7. Lower right-hand table, my 3-bet get called. Going to go ahead and put in a small range bet. The board is 10-5-4 rainbow. Min raise from the cutoff, a lower left-hand table, fish calls on the button. I'm going to squeeze from my big blind with pocket queens. And take it all down. Pretty decent turn card for me. We get a 9 that gives me a gut shot. I've also got a flush draw blocker with my king queen. Going to go ahead and keep barreling and plan to barrel off on most rivers here. Go ahead and use a 2/3 size. Upper right-hand table, can go ahead and stab for the minimum on the turn. With second pair top kicker. Lower left-hand table, min raise from the button. I'm going to pop them up from the small blind about 15% with my pocket kings. Lower right-hand table, the river is a 10 board pairing card. I've got king high. I really think I need to dust off here. I never know if he's going to fold too much here or not. Probably not a ton, but I do think it's better than checking down. And he had 9s full, so once that 9 hit on the turn, I was toast. I was never getting the full, but that's the way it goes. Upper right-hand table, get a 2.5x open under the gun. A recreational player calls from the cutoff. I'm going to squeeze from the button with aces. Going to squeeze about 8-9% here. Both players call. We get a jack 8-3 two-tone board. I do have the ace of clubs for the backdoor nut flush draw and flush draw blocker. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small bet. I'm neither range betting nor range checking multi-way, but in position to all players. Pocket aces, I think, is going to be a fine hand to put into that continuation bet range. I'll use the small bet size multi-way. And on that flop flush hand, he had king queen for top two that got, you know, a little bit murkier on that ace river, and I guess he just put me on some kind of bluff. So I'm very glad I check raised, as I wasn't really all that big of a cooler. Let's see here. Both players called. That's kind of a lousy turn. Offsuit 10, which I guess Jack 10 or some hands like Queen 9, 9, 7 got there. I just don't know that that's going to be that big a part of the range. I'm going to continue using the small bet size here because we're still multi-way. And obviously getting it in all day long against the player with 75 bucks left after I put 35 of it in on the turn. The out of position guy check raises. That makes life a lot more dicey. And he does check jam. I just don't really. I don't know, man. This sucks. I mean, he can have jacks, he can have eights, he can have threes, he can have jack 10. I just don't know if that guy starts turning too many hands into bluffs there. I think this hand is supposed to be a fold. I'm going to fold it. Sucks to fold aces after double barreling a 3-bet pop, but it's kind of a weird spot multi-way like that. Lower left-hand tab, we're going to open 10-8 suited from middle position using a 21% range. For right-hand tab, we're going to open ace-jack from the cutoff using a 28% range. Against that 3-bet from the big blind, 10-8 a little bit too loose to be continuing. It's actually one of my weaker opens from middle position, so I'm going to just be happy to go ahead and fold that one. Recreational player leads into me for pot on queen 8 deuce monotone. I do have a diamond, but it's the ace of diamonds I'm calling all day long. Against a smaller bet, I'm calling all day long. I think against the pot size bet with the weaker diamond, I think I can go ahead and fold. It's pretty close, but I think it's going to make more sense to go ahead and fold there. Upper left-hand table, middle position player opens 2.5x. I'll defend my big blind with pocket threes and check range on the flop. Great flop for me, 5-3 deuce two-tone. He checks back. I'm going to go ahead and start probing the turn small. Really only using the small size against regs. Against fish, I can split into an overbet size earlier if I would like. He comes along for the call. River is the 4 of spades, a not ideal card for me. And then it's really hard for me to rep bluffs here, is that my spade draws got there, an ace or a 6 got there. I'm going to go ahead and still try to get some value from a suspicious jack, but I'm value cutting myself against an ace some of the time here. Going to get raised by flushes. Yeah, ace, queen of spades. I guess his play is all right. Yeah, I mean, his play is fine, especially against that small turn size. Lower left-hand tab, we're going to open King-Jack from the cutoff, using a 28% range. Upper right-hand table, get a, it looks like it's a posting player, maybe a limper. The player playing at 85 bucks deep pops him up to 6. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet him out of my big blind with pocket king. It's going to use a smaller size than usual because he's so short, and I can't pop it up to something like 26 bucks and still really be able to fold. I'm going to pop him up to about 20 here. He's stacking off with, oh, he's also very passive, so I'm really only doing this with queens plus ace king, I think, even though he's shorter. Comes along for the call. We get an ace-jack-9 monotone board. Lousy spot. Because this guy is so passive, I'm really not going to try to fold him off anything better. He goes ahead and moves all in there. I think this is a shitty spot. You know, if it's a little bit less deep, I can call off with the kings. If I've got an ace-x hand, I can call off. I think I'm just going to fold there, thinking he's going to have so much ace-x in his range there, and he probably isn't doing that with too much stupid bullshit with how passive he's been. Lower left-hand table, 2.5x open from the button. A fishy player calls in the small blind. I'm in the big blind with queen 9 suited. I'm going to go ahead and put in my squeeze. Squeezing 14-15% here. Squeezing very aggressively against that button open. The button player folds up, but the small blind comes along. Have an open ender on Jack 10-5 rainbow. Go ahead and range bet small. Lower right-hand table, open queens from the button. Upper right-hand table, get a 2.5x open. Fish player in position calls. I'm going to actually call from the small blind with deuces, trying to hit a set here multi-way. Do hit the set. Going to check range to the in-position player on Jack 8 deuce two-tone. Lower right-hand table, the big blind player of fish calls. We have a 7-4 deuce rainbow board. Going to go ahead and range bet him small after he checks to me. The pre-flop raiser in the upper right-hand table, bets about 2/3. I've got bottom set. The in-position player folded out. I'm going to go ahead and put in a check raise against him here and look to shovel more money in on most runouts. Lower left-hand table, open king 5 suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. Comes along for the call. Lousy turn, flush closing turn. Also completes a straight, I suppose, although I don't think he's going to have a ton of queen 10 there against the flop check raise. I am going to keep betting with my SEP, and I'm going to use a much smaller size on that flush closer. Use that about 30% of pot, bet 22 into 74. Comes along for the call. River is a 7. That's an even worse card for me, as now there's a 4 straight out to go with the 3 flush. I mean, I would jam with my bluffs. I would jam with my flushes. I would probably even jam with my 10x, so that's going to slow down a lot on the turn on the flush closing card. I guess I'd still have some of that, though. I think I'd probably mostly just jam with my 10x. I think with my sets, they're just not strong enough anymore. I want to go ahead and check and just see what he does. You know, an overpair can often check back here. I don't know the player's going to be good enough to turn kings, queens, or aces, ace-jack type hands into bluffs. Yeah, I think this is going to be a fold against the pool. I mean, he went bet, call, call, bet. That's a pretty under bluff line. Yeah, this is a fold. As much as a shame it is to toss a set into the muck, that's a lousy board for my set. Feel like I'm not catching too many breaks here right now, but that's the way the cards go a good portion of the time. No sympathy coming my way on that, nor do I expect or want any. 3x open from a half-stack player under the gun on the upper right-hand table. I don't really like calling in position very much, especially against the 3x size. I want to call even less for them with these kind of mid-pocket pairs when the player is not full stacked. And I don't think the hand is weak enough to put into a re-raise range. I'm going to go ahead and fold 8s there. For right-hand table, I'll open Queen Jack from the cutoff using the 28% range. Short stack guy jams all in over my open. I'll fold my Queen Jack. Interesting games today. Very interesting games today. Lower right-hand table, going to open 10s from middle position using a 21% range. Upper left-hand table, got a button open limp. I'll complete the small blind with ace-4. Get an 8-7-6 monotone board. I do have the ace of clubs. I'll check range on there on that spot. Flop checks around, offsuit deuce. I'm going to go ahead and stab for the minimum and plan to follow through on the river whether I miss or hit. Lower right-hand table, a half-stack in-position player calls. I'll check range to him on the Jack 4-3 rainbow. Turn is a 5, putting the backdoor flush draw out there. Going to go ahead and jab at the turn small. Interesting river in that I made top pair. I am going to go ahead and put in a 2/3 bet for value, having rivered my overcard for top pair. Upper right-hand table, opening Queen Jack from the button, using the 44% range. A half-stack player from the big blind comes along. He checks to me. I'll put in a small range bet here after he checks to me and I'm in position. He check calls. Flop was 10-7-6 rainbow. Turn is an ace. I now have a gut shot to go with my queen high, which isn't much of anything. Let me see here. I probably want to bet some of these queen jack gut shots and check others. It's a rainbow board. I guess I'll do what I call height mixing, where I'll bet the gut shots for the bigger cards the first card and check back the smaller ones. So I've got some queen jack in both lines. Here I do not have the tall card in the first spot, so I'll go ahead and check it back. River 3 of hearts. I'll plan to put in a bluff here one way or another. Let me see here. Just going to go ahead and use a 2/3 size. Don't think there's any reason to overbet. You could overbet if you think the guy's going to fold. No, he folds Jack 9, so he just folded a gut shot as well. Lower right-hand table, got a 3x open from the cutoff. I'm in the big blind with ace-3 suited, which I will defend with a call and check range on the flop. Get a king, queen, deuce rainbow board. I do have backdoor flush draw as well as gut shots to both the wheel and Broadway here with the ace and the 3. He bets small. Because he bets small, I'm going to go ahead and make a move on him and try to put a check raise in on him. Continue barreling if I pick up a flush draw. I can have deuces. I can have king, queen for top 2. I can have... I guess I don't really have king deuce or queen deuce suited there. I just don't know if he's going to figure all that out, though. Lower left-hand table, 3x open for middle position. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet from the cutoff with my ace-5 suited. 3 betting about 9% there, including a couple of the wheel aces like ace-5 and ace-4. Comes along for a call. We get a king-10-3, two-tone board. I do have the nut flush draw. He checks to me. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. Planning to continue barreling for the most part here, given that I've got the nut flush draw. And he puts in a min raise. He pops me up from 12, or I guess not a min raise, but he doubles it from 12.26. Well, that is a min raise. From 12.26 to 24.52. I can continue with all sorts of flush draws, queen, jack, all sorts of pairs of kings over pairs of aces. I guess the trickiest spot here is if I've got a hand like queens or jacks. But ace-5 suited is going to be a very easy continue. Turns the queen, giving me a gut shot to go with it. He bet 66 into 88. Let me see here. I've got 12 clean outs here to the nuts. Well, basically the nuts. I guess some of those board pairing cards that also close the flush aren't necessarily the nuts anymore. Let's see here. Yeah, I've still got a call for that price. I brick out. He puts the rest of the money in. I've got no choice but to fold my ace high. And I bleed some more chips here. For right-hand table, open queen 3 suited from the button using the 44% range. Get 3-bet from the small blind. It's one of my weaker hands I open on the button. He's also been extremely tight passive. 7% of hands played, 2% of hands raised pre-flop over 46. Can't fold that one fast enough against that action from that player. Going to go ahead and isolate the limper from the cutoff with ace-9. Little on the loose side, but he's pretty weak, and the table for the most part's been passive. Lower left-hand table, got a button limp, small blind complete. I'm going to pop up from the big blind with king-queen. Up in a pretty tight 12-ish% range there. Upper right-hand table, I flop top pair in the ace-king-6 rainbow board. I am going to go ahead and put in a small range, but against this guy, he quickly folds. Lower right-hand table, going to open ace-5 suited under the gun using an 18% range. Get 3-bet from the small blind, almost a 5x type size. Should be a really tight formation here, given that I'm opening from under the gun. I don't need to be calling with my wheel aces against a 3-bet there. Even if I think the player is sufficiently aggressive, I can still fold ace-5 suited against that 3-bet. Probably no need to continue any wider than 7s plus suited broadways and ace-king. Maybe ace-queen is a bluff hand. Got a 3x open lower right-hand table. I'm going to go ahead and fold my 5-3 suited from the big blind. Right on the cusp. Could go either way, but I'm going to go ahead and fold it. Lower left-hand table, queen deuce suited, probably just outside of standard open range for me. We do have a fish in the big blind. I'm going to expand my range, try to play with the fish, and I'm going to go ahead and open that hand. Lower right-hand table, get a 2.5x open from the button. I'm going to 3-bet from the small blind with 10-9 suited, 3-betting about 15% there, very aggressive. Lower left-hand table, he checks to me. I'm going to go ahead and range bet small. I do have weak trips on the queen-queen 5 two-tone board. Upper left-hand table, the recreational player, open limps middle position. I'm going to pop him up from the cutoff with king-queen suited using something like my middle position open range, about 21%. Lower left-hand table, I'm going to open ace-6 suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. The upper left-hand table, the big blind player calls and the limping player folds. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small range bet after he checks to me. I do have the backdoor flush draw and some blockers to the trips on the Jack-Jack 7 two-tone board. Lower left-hand table, I get the big blind calls. I'm going to range bet him small here after he checks. The board is king 5-5. I've got ace-6. I guess I got some removal to trips with the 6 in my hand. Block 5-6. Lower left-hand table, open queen 10, blind on blind, using a 45% range. At 5x open from the weird sort of loose passive player, I'm going to go ahead and fold my big blind with king 10. That's a very weird open size, though. Upper right-hand table, going to open 9-8 suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. Upper left-hand tab, going to open ace-6 suited from the button using a 44% range. Lower right-hand tab, we're going to open ace-9 from the button using the 44% range. Lower left-hand tab, we're going to open deuces from the cutoff using the 28% range. Lower right-hand table got called by both blinds and get led into 4 into 14 on the Queen 7-3 rainbow board. Lower left-hand table, recreational player calls in the big blind. He checks to me. I will re-range betting him in position. I'm going to go ahead and fold my ace high even against that small bet. Just no real backdoors. You know, multi-way pot. Both players are still coming along. I'd call with any gut shot. I'd call with backdoor flush draws. I'd call with any pair for sure. But a hand like ace-9, just not a whole lot going for it. And I don't even know what card I'm looking for other than, I guess, hitting an ace. Maybe I should have called just with an overcard even against that size, but it seems a little bit sketchier. A 2.5x open heads up there on the On the upper left-hand table, I will defend with Jack-8, kind of on the cusp of defend the big blind, normally against a button-up, and we're heads-up, the range can be a lot wider. I get a King-8-3 rainbow board. He goes ahead and puts in a small 1/3 bet. I will check call with my second pair, continue checking the turn. Double barrels, I've got second pair, need to keep calling here, heads up with second pair, continue checking on the river. For right-hand tail, I'm actually going to go ahead and try to bet for value there with that second pair jack that I hit. What a nit, doesn't triple with top pair. Table broke, I'm about to shut the session down anyway and take a little break. Lower left-hand table, recreational player limps middle position. I'm going to pop him up from the button with ace-10 suited using something like my cutoff open range. About 28%. Get a 7-5-3 two-tone board. I do have the nut flush draw. After he checks, I'll put in a small range bet. Plan to continue barreling here with my 2 overs and nut flush draw. I get checked raise. I got to call about 16 into about 48, so he's check raising about half pot here. Clearly calling with the nut flush draw, of course. Pretty good turn card, the 10, giving me top pair, top kicker to go with my nut flush draw. Now he goes and he bets half pot, which makes my decision very easy. I don't really know that I can fold pretty much any size, but against a half pot size there, I still don't even feel like I'm necessarily drawing at this point. Could be against some kind of weird pair or pair plus gut shot type hand on the flop. Now he goes and checks the river. The river is the backdoor flush closing card, and it also pairs the 7 on the flop. Had he checked and it was more of a true blank, I think I could go ahead and value jam. I think I want to check this back on that 7 that also does make some flushes out there. He had 5 deuce. He was just clicking buttons with second pair. I don't know that I can get called down if I shove there anyway. I think I play the hand just fine. Upper right-hand table, going to open King 10 from the button using a 44% range. Upper right-hand table, got a 3x open under the gun. I'm in middle position with jacks. Going to go ahead and put in a 3-bet. 3-betting about 8-9% in this spot. Like pocket 9s are better. Most of my suited broadways. Ace-queen, ace-king, king-queen, something like that. A few wheel aces. Maybe just ace-5. And got that one through. Last hand, just going to be a fold. Going to go ahead and shut it down, take a little break. Thank you for watching my video. Till next time, this is Charlie Murphy signing off.